Unlocking the Future, a live celebration of APIs hosted by Marketa. My name is Amy Krogan, and I'll be your moderator for today's live stream. And today we are exploring how to fully embrace sustainability this holiday season. We'll be sharing insights into how consumers can make mindful choices, and we'll also be sharing insights into why fintechs should consider offering more mindful shopping solutions. We have an all-star panel today from Xero, KAE, and Ecolytic. And grab your hot cocoa because your holiday bonus has come early this year. Our friends at KAE are going to be sharing their Gen Z report. We'll do a data dive and learn about which shoppers are prioritizing sustainability and why. And how could we possibly talk Gen Z without having some actual Gen Zers here to offer their perspective? We've got a lot of holiday cheer to spread, so let's get to it and meet our panel. I'll ask you all to introduce yourselves, starting with you, Marta.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Amy. So I'm Marta Fiorentini. I spend most of my professional life in strategy consulting, and in KEI continue helping companies across different industries identify opportunities, solve for challenges, and develop their growth and growth strategies. I've been working on sustainability for many years for different angles, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion, joining sustainability and Gen Zs.
Wonderful. We're so glad you're here. David, you're up.
Hey everyone, David, one of the co-founders of Ecolytic. 20 years now in payments. Does that make me technically a payment Gen Z? I'm not sure, but otherwise I'm older. And yeah, 9 years or 10 years now in sustainability, and yeah, looking forward to the conversation. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're glad you're here. Lisa, your turn.
Hi, Amy. Thank you for having me. I head up the sustainability team and also work in comms at Xero, which is a new sustainable fintech app that we're going to be talking about today. I've been working in sustainable finance for 15 years and in financial services for more than 25 years now. So I'm absolutely not Gen Z, which is why I would love to introduce you to my colleague, Hannah.
I love it. Well, I'm not Gen Z with you, so we're in good company there. But of course, our Gen Z representatives. Hannah, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Hannah Peckham. I am a marketing executive here at Xero. I've only been here for a few months as I recently graduated from university. I am a Gen Z, and I'm really interested in sustainability, marketing, entrepreneurism, and things like that. So it's great to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful to have you, and congratulations on graduation. Freya, you're up.
Hi, so I'm Freya. Sorry. I'm currently at the University of Liverpool, where I study human geography, and I'm also really interested in sustainability. And then for this panel, I'm representing Xero as a student ambassador, and I'll be answering questions towards the Gen Z population.
Lovely. Well, we're delighted you're all here, and it's going to be fun. We're going to unwrap. See what I did there? We're going to unwrap sustainability. So let's get started with talking fintech solutions. What I want to start with here is, how can fintechs help consumers during this holiday season when it comes to mindful budgeting? And also, how can they help them reduce their consumption when it comes to disposable goods? Lisa, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So, at this time of year, we've got Black Friday coming up next weekend. It's hard not to be bombarded by all the offers, and we don't often think about the impacts of our spending. But there are ways that we can be more sustainable with our spending. So, most fintech apps these days have things like budgeting tools, pots, vaults. And then where we're coming in with Xero is to obviously enable our customers to understand the environmental impact of their spending, not just the budgetary impact. There's some really, really scary stats. So I think as a nation in the UK, we spend something like 29% more throughout the month of December. Our waste increases by 30%, 3 million extra tons of waste. And when you think about the global emissions of the retail sector as a whole, it's actually responsible for about 25% of global emissions overall. So really, it's just a chance for us to think about, do we really need that new sparkly top? Do we need the latest PlayStation if we've got kids and we're being badgered by them? Or, you know, for the younger amongst us, you know, really the chance to think about whether you want those items and the environmental impact of those items as well.
Those are really some substantial numbers. David, what are your thoughts?
Maybe, yeah. Well, I think maybe to add on it, I think what we often forget is the environmental crisis, also a social crisis, right? And I think that plays into it as well. And I think what we do, we basically, as Ecologic, we enable more banks to become like Xero. So we are the backbone analytics of your spendings, and then we help you as a bank to educate your customers in the same way. And I think when we talk about social, it's a lot of, there's an educational gap, right? And there's a lot of, and the environmental crisis also often a political discussion. So to give you a very controversial topic, do we need to eat that much meat, right? Everyone has an opinion on it, and most of them have a strong opinion on it. And then, you know, if you start educating consumers around it of what is actually the hidden cost of meat, it often opens eyes. And what we see is that once you start in a less political framework, more in a financial well-being environment, having these discussions, you're actually you're landing more easily the content, and you're handling more easy and open ear to like say, okay, well, maybe I actually have to question my consumption a little bit. So I think it's a good opportunity. And there are many factors that we can play. Obviously, our consumptions. If I tell my kids there's no Christmas for present or no presents for Christmas, I think that was not landing well. So we have to do something. But there are many other ways, right? Maybe it's not the turkey this year. Maybe something else. Let's experiment with other stuffs, which can have a higher impact than maybe the new Lego piece that the bigger one wants.
I love that. That's great. And yes, we don't want to tell the children no Christmas. That sounds
No.
sounds like not a win for anyone there. Marta, do you have some perspective on this as well?
Well, there are a number of topics that both Lisa and David have mentioned. We will touch on them later. Lisa has mentioned the tools that the banks offer, but we will see how these are not enough. So yes, budgeting tools and pots are useful, but there is a need for insights and education that also David touched on, that it comes very clearly, especially from the Gen Z report that we did. So yeah, I'll have some numbers a bit later on this.
Yeah, I'll look forward to that for sure. So let's talk a little bit about what people can do to be more sustainable during this holiday season. Lisa, I'll have you kick it off again.
Yeah, again, you know, every chance is an opportunity for us to engage with our customers and to enable them to think about, you know, the ways that they can be more sustainable, as David said. So is it understanding the impact or the environmental impact of a basket of, you know, having the traditional Thanksgiving or Christmas turkey and the environmental impact of that? Can we actually change that? Are there things that we can do? You know, we don't necessarily have to think about. Hannah and I were having a chat in the office a couple of weeks ago, and she said, it would be great to decorate tinsel around the office. And I was like, well, actually, tinsel's not the most sustainable product. So with everything that we do, you know, is there another way? We don't have to fall victim to the commercialism of you know, what we've been conditioned to do for Christmas and for the festive season. There is always another way. We've got a Black Friday blog on our website at the moment, so there's some alternative shopping ideas on there at the moment. Shop local, kind of shop secondhand. I think globally we're seeing a huge rise in secondhand shopping sites, which is testament to really people's you know, a movement towards wanting to do things differently and not necessarily as commercial as we have been conditioned to be.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of this is just learning new behaviors, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and I think it's interesting, you know, David will have some insights on this, I'm sure, how we can use our finance app and how we can use our money for good. and really start to think about the behavior change behind that. And that's where the transparency and the sort of overall view of our finances and the environmental impact of our finances, as Marta said, going beyond what's in our savings pots, what's in our savings vaults, and actually looking at the environmental impact of how we're spending, and that will start to shift the dial on behavior.
Absolutely. Marta, you want to chime in, or David? Go ahead.
Just maybe a quick add-on, because we often talk about behavioral change, but what we also should not forget is there is a preference change, right? So we're so used to have the turkey on Christmas. That's just tradition. It is like it is. We shouldn't change that, right? And this is a lot when we talk about the climate crisis. Often we need to change through behavior, but also need to come to change preferences. And simple examples. Once you have a solar roof, you actually start automatically looking a little bit more carefully. When do I turn on the dishwasher? I'm not just doing it right after breakfast in the morning because the sun is not up there. And once you actually feel it in your pocket because you're saving money, it's this free energy that comes through, right? You start changing your behavior. My wife often looks at the dashboard in our home. They nope, I'm not turning on the dryer now. I need to wait half an hour. Probably sun comes out. And it's weird. We're not used to this because normally you just turn it on and you don't think about it. But once you engage with those things, you start to really change your behavior and later on also your preferences, which is really interesting. I think Christmas is a good time of the year where everything calms down, where we can sometimes where is the preference of behavior that I actually can change for the next year? But sorry, I jumped in. So Marta, maybe you want to add to it.
No, actually, that's super interesting. And I want to build on this train of thoughts and this behavioral change, which is really the key. And behavioral change can be really hard. You need to decide not to have something in most cases. And what can help maybe is building gradually towards that end behavioral change. And there are some small changes that are less traumatic, that are more acceptable, especially if maybe there are people who they rather not do that at all. So better to do something rather than not. And again, I'll touch on this later, but a few things that are really top of mind for me are returns and fast delivery, which put immense pressures on supply chains and have really a massive environmental impact. And sometimes you don't need something that quickly. And sometimes you don't need to buy many things thinking of returning some. There is a bit of planning that can be done. And that is already a massive step for the environment, really.
I love that. And David, I love how you hit on the traditions. I think we are very much committed to our traditions, but it is also tradition that traditions must change. So that is in and of itself what tradition is about. So let's move on a little bit and kind of think bigger than just the holiday time. So how can fintechs encourage consumers, particularly Gen Z consumers, to practice sustainable spending and gift giving year round? David, why don't you kick us off?
I guess there are many ways, and then if I look at a Gen Z, right, I think now this is my outside view. Feel old now talking to a younger generation, so please correct me, Hannah and Freya. But I think in a younger age, you have different needs, and you're just starting your life, right? You're probably just moving out of your home. You're trying to money is tight and all of this stuff. You probably don't really want to look into sacrifices for the climate or something. But at the end, I feel like there's a lot of win-win, right? Secondhand saves you money, but at the same time you do something good. So why not embrace this a little bit more? And I think what we see, or what I would say across the fintech space, I mean, obviously we have a very clear focus on educating everyone, not just Gen Z, but educating, breaking through habits, showing you what you can do actually with your money, how you can invest your money, but on the other hand, how you can spend it and how you can save money and being better for the environment. It always goes often hand in hand. A lot of people say the sustainable transition costs money. Of course it does, but we are at the point right now where there's a lot of alternatives where it makes it also cheaper. So I think that's a good and positive thing. And I think there's ways, budgeting that we already touched on, which is, I think, a good one. I don't think we have society-wise enough education on how to handle and deal with money. How do we actually, set money aside? How much should I spend? So, using the data that we have in the payment streams and actually bringing the clarity and saying, hey, your mobile contract is maybe a little bit too high for the income you have, or your rent or whatever. Things like, getting direct feedback that fits my profile, my income, my status, my situation. And then what we do, basically add the environmental and social layer to it and say, look, this is what it has an effect on the environment and the social. I think there's a lot of power in that data, yet underutilized. But what we see is that it actually works. And I think that's, I can't get better than that. But yeah, that would be my take.
Absolutely. Marta, how about you?
Yeah, I would reiterate specifically on the education, the insights that fintechs can provide. The study that we did, we found out that pretty much across all the personas that we identified in Gen Z, they all found that they had a lack of financial knowledge, and that was a barrier for investing and saving. It was different across personas, but that came out very clearly, and it was also quite across the board in terms of financial services providers. So whether it was mainstreams on fintechs, people felt that they didn't have enough. And this is a generation also that has access to information on social media constantly, right? So I think that there is an opportunity for financial providers and fintechs specifically to provide more information with the data analytics, because sometimes it's the lack of awareness of the consequences of your behavior. So sometimes seeing how small changes can make a difference can actually have a massive impact on behaviors.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the data. We're going to dive into that next. But before we do, I wanted to get Lisa's take on this question as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on David's comment about sacrifices, and I 100% agree, because it's all in the reframing. So what we're trying to do with Zero is to enable people to, understand where their money is going, how their money is being used. We're really, really inert in this country, in the UK, and I'm sure it's the same across Europe and in the US as well. We don't think about what happens to our money when our salary gets paid into our bank account. When we spend money, we don't think how our bank or how our financial provider, what they are doing with our money in turn. And everything that we have in our bank account is basically licensed for our chosen financial provider to use as they like. We've given them that license, whether we agree morally with what they're doing with it or not. And we don't take the time necessarily to really think about that and ask the question, what is happening with our money that is, deposited with XYZ bank? But it doesn't have to be about a sacrifice. It doesn't have to be like, well, I have to give up something. If you take the time to understand and think about, ask the question, what's happening to my money? You can then think about the power of actually using your money for good. So can you shift your money away from some of the larger, this is UK example again, but some of the larger banks that are predominantly still financing the fossil fuel expansion? I think there's some stats that the UK Big Five banks lent and invested around $55 billion in 2023 alone to the fossil fuel finance sector. So it's not about sacrifices. It's not necessarily us that, as consumers, that need to make those sacrifices with our money. It's about changing it, reframing it, and how can we use our money for good? So rather than allowing it to be used, in sectors that we fundamentally disagree with, turn it on its head and make it a positive.
Absolutely. And we're clearly seeing a theme emerge where everyone is aligned that education is important as we're moving forward. So to that end, Marta, we'd love to hear from you and give you an opportunity to share a little bit more about what the Gen Z attitudes towards sustainability look like in the new KAE report.
Yeah, thank you. So the segmentation study that we did is based on a survey of 1,000 UK Zoomers born between mid-90s and early 2010s. And in this study, we identified 4 personas. I think we can go to the next slide because it shows the next one as well. So we identified 4 personas, and the largest group is what we call the ethical explorers. They represent over 40% of the population, and their characteristics is really that they place a lot of importance on sustainability as a driver of choice when they need to select a product or a financial provider. And they also care about the values, the brand, and the values and the actions of the companies they choose as providers or decide to invest in. So that's a really nice part of the Zoomer population that care about sustainability, but they're not the only ones. There is a second group that is a bit smaller, is about just under 20%, and that's the next slide. And we call them energized entrepreneurs. So they're a small group, but they're really interesting and attractive segment, especially for financial service providers, because they already have quite a high disposable income. They tend to have a side hustle. They're very keen savers and investors. The percentage of investors in this group is much higher than the other groups. And they also place a lot of importance on sustainability. That's their priority when they make a product choice or a provider choice. So basically, we're talking about sustainability being a priority driver for product and provider selection for more than half of the Gen Z population. The other 2 personas, stretch spenders and sluggish starters, they share a similar characteristic, which is low income and low level of savings. So stretch spenders is the second largest group, representing a third of Gen Z. They tend to have low level of income, low level of savings, rely a lot on credit products, BNPL products, and so kind of inevitably sustainability is not a priority for them. Price and emotions actually drive their choices. Sluggish starters instead, they're a small group, less than 10%. They tend to be younger, still living with their parents in the majority of cases, looking for the first job, maybe thinking of traveling before starting working. And because they don't have these financial responsibilities, they're not as anxious as stretch spenders when it comes to finances. But they also are mostly driven by price and features when it comes to choosing a product. However, I am confident that even these 2 groups, as they become more financially strong, they start working, they become more knowledgeable about their finances, and hopefully for stretch spenders, they learn to manage their finances and deal with that in a healthier and sustainable way. Sustainability will become more important when they decide to make a product choice.
So clearly a lot of opportunity being presented here. Lisa, how about you? Any hot takes on this as you read through this?
I think it's great news for the planet that the ethical explorers are the largest cohort amongst this. I'm not surprised. There's data that shows that 70% of Gen Z are anxious about climate change, but equally, again, going back to the education point, they want the education on what are the solutions. They want to be offered solutions, and it's a great opportunity for fintechs at this time to engage with that need and that want. How do we as a kind of industry deliver against those, really? I think, the energized entrepreneurs are obviously great as well, and it'd be interesting to see as this cohort of Gen Z grows up, as it were, and we move into Gen Alpha, which is my children's generation, to see how they change and how customer needs change as this cohort evolves and grows up.
Yeah, and I have 3 Gen Z daughters myself. I know exactly which one falls into which bucket here, but that's a story for another day. David, how about you? Any comments on this?
I only have alpha kids, so we still have a bit of time. Yeah, it's interesting to see. I think it matches a little bit, I think, our experience. But even though, right, what we always try to do is trying to find solutions for all of the generations. And I think while I like the Gen Z topic so much because right now it drives the industry, right? How do we attract new customers? Because in general, banking customers become relatively old. So how do we get the younger generation into financial products that make sense for them, right? And I think that's a big of a problem for the older giant in the market, but I think we're seeing a lot of fintechs doing a good thing of attracting them for them. And I think banking is different and they have different needs, right? And addressing them is good. At the same time, what we always try to do, like, if you look at the distribution of wealth, especially in the Western world, and the actual impact that comes from that older generation, that's a generation where we have where we can, through bigger behavioral changes or general behavioral changes, we can have a higher impact. So I think it's good using it to get the banks focused, do something of sustainability, and once you have that on your radar, actually say, well, but you have quite a good customer base already. All of them have a way higher impact, and they actually have the financials to actually act on it as well, right? So if you, I don't know, need to retrofit your house or get a solar roof or something like that, there's an entire generation that can afford it, or at least the loan is at lower risk to give to them. And the impact that they will actually drive is quite high. So we can basically tackle it from both sides. And that's why I think the Gen Z is a good starting point for the banks to wake up. You need to attract new clients. At the same time, don't forget your existing clients, because they have, right now at least, a higher impact, yet being influenced by the younger generations.
Yeah, that's a great point. And to that point, Marta, do we have some things we can talk through about how other generations are viewing sustainability?
Yes, absolutely. Well, good news, sustainability is not only a priority for Gen Z. Sustainability has been important for previous generations too. I think that the difference is more on the fact that over time the concept of sustainability, of caring for the environment, has evolved and expanded. And so sometimes sustainability means different things for different generations. I actually have a couple of slides, and we can build up to the last one really of this set. So baby boomers are really the generation that wakened the world to the importance of preserving the environment and planted the seeds, pun intended, of the green movement. They organized the first Earth Day in 1970, and there are a lot of sustainability-related legislations and policies that were put in place thanks to this generation. With them, sustainability means more. It started to bring attention to materials. So for them, often sustainability is more about what are the products made of? Are they made of natural materials? Are recyclable? They were very active. There were a generation of global political activism. They were out in the streets demanding social change. And even now, some of them are back out in the streets with younger generations, protesting, demanding more attention to environmental themes, for example. Gen X, the importance of materials continued. There were more attention to recycling, supporting small businesses. But I think what happened with this generation is that there was a big leap in technological progress at that time. Their lives were completely revolutionized by technology, and so this generation had a strong trust in technology, and that technology can actually find solutions also for environmental issues. Then if we move to millennials, the concept continues to expand and goes beyond materials, and we start looking at sourcing, packaging, manufacturing. What are the green gas emissions associated with the manufacturing process? What are the shipping practices of the companies? So the concept of circularity starts to emerge. And this is also the generation that started using internet and social media, even if not in the way we're using social media now. And so they started to learn about what companies do on internet, and they started to hold them accountable. If we can please just build the slides to the end of this when there is, yes, Gen Z appearing as well. So all these trends continue with Gen Z. And I think that what changes with this generation is that the concept of sustainability goes beyond the pure environmental aspect, but starts looking at more social factors and aspects as well. For example, diversity and inclusion and gender equality practices. So more ESG topics rather than just environment and that we associate usually with sustainability. So basically sustainability is, as it should be, a priority for all, or important for all generations. But I think that Gen Z is more vocal, and because they've been the first digital native generation, their activism on social media can be amplified exponentially. They're not scared of exposing companies that don't practice what they preach, and companies have learned that their backlash on social media, when they go viral, can have really significant consequences in terms of brand reputation or stock value. So sustainability important for all generations, but as I mentioned, differences in terms of what it means, what I immediately associated with, and so what I pay attention to when I need to choose a product, choose a provider. As Lisa mentioned, the fact that some banks still invest a lot on fossil fuel may be a deterrent for some generations in partnering with them or choosing them as providers.
Yeah, social media has certainly allowed voices to be amplified quickly and loudly, and companies are on the hook to pay attention for sure. Lisa, how do you feel about all this?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. So I'm Gen X, and I've worked in sustainable finance, sustainable personal finance, and ethical money now for more than 15 years. And I have to say, you know, when I was a child, we were educated on climate change, and back then it was all about the ozone layer and what we could do to, you know, counteract the issues with the ozone layer. I think I don't know what happened with the education system in the UK anyway, in between kind of late Gen X, millennials, Gen Zs, in terms of personal finance education and climate change education. You know, how did we get to this? How did we reach this point where we're all so desperate for more information, and what can we do to take both government and policymaker action on, you know, to arrest climate change, but also individual action as well. There really hasn't been a kind of roadmap for us to follow. So you might call us collectively like the lost generations, if you like, grouping us all together. We're all searching for answers. And I think, you know, the climate change in recent years, and since the Paris Accord have obviously it's brought those environmental issues to the forefront. And, you know, we've realized that we are running out of time, and collectively we're the last generation that can actually do something to change the future direction of this planet, if we are hopeful that we will have a planet to live on in years to come. So yeah, I think it's interesting when you think about it. Goes back to education, and I think as a financial provider, the more we can offer those chances and, you know, minute opportunities for piecemeal education, you know, habits, atomic habits, if you like, things that we can change and act on almost imperceptibly. that's where the real change is going to come. And that's where the dial will really shift, both for consumer knowledge and education, and also for the benefit of the planet as well.
Yeah, hopeful indeed. David, anything you want to share on this one?
Maybe to add a different flavor as well. It's like when it's, there's the good and the bad news when it comes to sustainability, right? It's like I always, 10 years now in the topic, and Lisa, you must be even more depressed looking backwards. But I think it's what I found so interesting. Over the years, right? You have this emotional ups and downs, like, oh, now finally the world is waking up again and we can get to move things around, and then some weird things happen and politicians changing the course again, and you have this absolutely weird discussions. I think that the good news is that's not going away. That's a problem. It's a crisis. It's going to stay. So people will get more their aha moments over time. The bad news is it's not in a pleasant way, right? So if we see it everywhere in the world where extreme weather events will occur, and people will wake up to it. So I think it's just a matter of time right now where we will have more and more people waking up to it. And then again, so that's good and bad. We would be the other way around. A nicer way would be nicer, but here we are. I think sometimes we need to learn it the hard way, apparently. But I think the other good way is, and that's good for the industry, it's not a topic that is trending at some point and that dominates for a few years and then goes away. The climate crisis requires a transformation of our society and our infrastructure. And that requires enormous amounts of capital. Well, luckily, if you're a bank, that's exactly your job, right? Investing and allowing companies to invest into those solutions. And the other good news is all of the solutions are there, and they're usually better. So if you invest into, if you help consumers getting in a solar roof, right? It makes the house more, the price of the house increases, so it decreases your risk as a bank. It helps you on the consumer is actually saving money. It's again decreasing the risk on the loan. So there's a lot of win-wins. It's actually, you can't do anything wrong. The only thing you need to do is getting it to your customers and getting your customers to actually adopt it. And I think that's all over. It's really good news, right? I think one of the next thing I would do is founding a bank, because there's so many opportunities where actually the risk massively decreases, and you can have so many happy customers because they're all saving money with it. And I think that is, so for the industry, this is good. On the other hand, I don't want to be a bank right now, because if you have all of those old assets under your management, they're literally getting flushed away or under fire or whatever. You really have a problem, because all your risk models from the past, they will not work, because all the climate models, well, they become unreliable. Being a new bank, I think is a bit of a better position in it. But I think there's so many opportunities. So I think for the industry, I think this is one of the best times you can be in. Yes, it's a crisis, but it's a crisis that if you handle it correctly, it's just a massive opportunity. And this is where I'm often just like, independent of generations, whatever, I don't really see why we're still so slow in the adoption. It's such a massive opportunity, and there's literally no downside to it, because everyone wins at the end. And that's why I think, I'm keen to see the next years coming and the generations pushing after it, to see more products.
Well, you brought up solutions, and we've talked a lot about today the need for education, the need for tools. So let's dive into that more, and let's talk solutions. What role do fintech tools play in helping consumers track their spending on eco-friendly brands and products? Lisa, why don't you start us off on this one?
Yeah, brilliant. I don't know if you could cut to slide 5.
I bet we can. Looky there.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So we, in setting up Xero, we've been kind of, in discussions for the future of Xero for around 2 years now. We've been building the product. We've done a lot of research. Having the opportunity for that daily small engagement with our customers. You know, we recognize that they want the opportunity to track their environmental footprint, for want of a better word, for, you know, beyond their carbon footprint. They want to know what impact they are having on the world, and basically what can they do about it. So, you know, we all know that the hierarchy of what we need to do in terms of understanding our emissions, reducing our emissions, and then balancing, mitigating, offsetting, whatever you want to call it, for the residual emissions that we can't tackle otherwise, whether you're an organization, whether you're a government, whether you're an individual. So in undertaking research with our potential customers at Zero, we realized that they did want this tool. And I think, you know, Ecolytic obviously has already been in the market offering something similar to banks in Europe and the US. So yeah, we've developed a slightly different tool at Zero. We're calling it Green Score. And rather than just a representation in terms of kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalents, because the research showed that actually customers felt that was a little bit hard to understand, unrelatable. So we've decided to remove the kilograms equivalent from it entirely, and it's a numeric abstraction of an environmental footprint. So in the early days, once we're launched, it will be carbon footprint only. Customers will then have the opportunity to add in lifestyle impacts. They will have the opportunity to scan receipts, for example, if they want to get that granular basket level data over their shopping, to say, well, you know, I didn't buy a load of beef when I went to Tesco's. I actually bought, you know, local organic vegetables only. So that's coming down the line. At the moment, it will be a carbon footprint with a little bit of abstraction on the top. So if you go through to the next slide, yep. So obviously what we all want to do, we want to build knowledge and inspire trust amongst our customer base. We want to create a product that is competitive. So it's engaging. You know, you have the success of Duolingo, for example. That's what we want to introduce with the Zero Green Score. So we want our customers to be able to talk about it with their friends, because that's another one of the great climate impacts that we can have if we talk about it and we understand what we're doing, and we can bring people with us on that journey. It just creates, again, it's another step on the ladder towards change. So yeah, also we built it so that we want to win hearts and minds, obviously. If you skip forward onto the next one. So this is just a little sneak peek of our green score. It will be a number between 0 and 1,000, and the better impact. So the more you reduce your environmental impact, then the lower your score will be. So there will be information and tips on how you can do that. It's not just on your Zero card, so it will reflect the spending on your Zero card, but you can link it through open banking, so you can also reflect the spending on your other debit cards and credit cards and other bank accounts as well. So you really could, if you wanted to, build up a whole picture of all of your spending and see how sustainable that is. The next phase of our development, if you just click onto the next slide, it's the final one on this. Thank you. So obviously, oh no, back one, sorry. Yeah. Obviously, over the course of a year, you'll be able to see the impact of your spending and see whether it's going up or down. And again, you know, it just bringing everyone back to why we're here today, thinking about this is the festive season. So you might be able to reflect on your spending last year, and, you know, had a green score in November, December last year of 900 or something, and you think, right, what can I do this year to make sure that my green score doesn't rocket up again? How am I going to do things differently? Again, it's just providing customers with the tools and insights and little nudges that helps shift those patterns of behavior and the habits of behavior. I can come on later to talk about the kind of carbon project element, which is the next phase of our evolution at Zero. But I'll let the others chip in for the moment.
I love this. And when I see this, I know I have children on social apps, and there is often a score tied to it that they very much engage with. So this, to me, I see this, and it's very much gamification for good. So I think it's really, really well done. How about you, Marta? How is this resonating with you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It resonates a lot with our research as well. Banking apps are the tool that all generations use, and especially the youngest ones use to track their spending and their finances. So that's a great platform because there is a big reach, and they already use it a lot. And if there is one of the main challenges, actually the number one challenge is usually that they don't offer enough insights. Especially, and when we look at the different personas, especially the ethical explorers and energized entrepreneurs, they're really expecting advanced insights, and we know that they care about sustainability. So something about that would be absolutely beneficial and useful for them. And obviously, the gamification aspect is extremely engaging and usually very successful with anyone.
Absolutely. Lisa, sounds like you and the Zero team are right on point there. David, any thoughts you want to share?
Maybe a bit of numbers that we see. I mean, we're now almost 5 years having live installations in the market. We have a few million customers engaging with similar solutions on a daily basis. What we see is, and this is, I think, is remarkable, it actually works because in average, consumers start to reduce their impact by around 13%. And we have control groups. We have this done with control groups. We have this done in different markets. We have one particular bank, the community bank, in a market, and they had more than 20% reducing their footprint simply by really just educating them on where there is impact and how they can change it. But there's also a lot of upside. Most banks are not in the game for actually just making the world a better place. It's good for marketing, but that doesn't pay the bills. So what the other effect is that what we see is most or all of them actually see an increased share of wallet, which means consumers tend to use that product more and spend more over it because they want to see a holistic picture of their influence. And that always comes with obviously more spending, which is good for the banks. And also much higher engagement. So depending a little bit on the installations, but what we see in average is between 15 and 30% more time spent and engaged through the apps, which is great because it allows you as a bank to promote your products better, get more face time with your customers, etc. That's what you want. So there is it works. And that's now proven over 5 years. And B, it actually has a return of invest for the bank. So again, everyone wins on this. I'm curious to see how your green score works out, Lisa. We've seen a few concepts like this in the past as well. Happy to share our thoughts if you're interested. But yeah, there is. We primarily concentrate on CO2 equivalents because it keeps the conversation a little bit easier and it's easier to compare to other things. But I'm curious to see how the results will be on the green score.
Yeah, thank you, David. I'd love to pick up this discussion later on.
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
It's clear engagement is the winner of the day from the data that we're seeing today. So let's talk a little bit. I want to shift gears here and talk a little bit about how spending is linked to carbon emissions and in turn with climate change. Lisa, anything you want to share there?
Mute myself. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm sure David has got a huge number of stats and experience in this sector. I think for my point, it comes back to not just spending per se, but use of money in general. And again, back to that point about every single penny that sits in your bank account, in your finance app, on your debit card, on your cards that you use for all of your spending, is a license for that financial provider to use your money. So, you know, if you are aware that the banks that you are using, the financial providers that you are using, are spending your money in ways that doesn't align with your personal values, and in ways that you are aware may potentially be exacerbating the climate crisis, then, you know, you can do something about it. So it goes beyond just spending. Again, it goes back to the use of money. And I think, you know, there are a number of banks within Europe that are doing it really, really well. David, you mentioned a community bank. They're obviously highly sustainable in terms of their lending and investment policies. I think as a sector, for the financial sector, the climate risk and the financial risk that is linked to the climate risk will increasingly be an issue as we move forward. You know, you can look at the discussions taking place at COP29 over the last 2 weeks. Yeah, so you just use it as if you're a consumer, use it as an opportunity to just ask the question, are you happy with how your money is being used? If not, there are loads of other options out there today, which is a win-win, and it doesn't have to be a sacrifice. Yeah, you don't need to be inert about it.
David, I'm sure you'll have some thoughts here. You wanna share?
Always, but I'm happy to let others do it as well.
Please go ahead.
I mean, everything what we do has an impact, right? And I think getting more awareness of how big or less it is, you know, getting the transparency on why is this meat discussion so political? I love my steak. I don't want to get rid of it, but, you know, understanding that, and I always like this fact, like, you know, if you 100 calories, what is it? A cow, 100 calories a cow consumes, we basically get 3 of them, right? So it's a highly inefficient system. Tasty, but inefficient if you look from an energy perspective from it, right? And just getting a bit of more awareness around everything that you do. It doesn't matter if it's transport, if it's your food, if it's your lifestyle, if it's a shopping habits, everything. And usually most of it is, well, good news for us, connected to payments because we have the data. Bad news for us as well. we always have to pay for it. But I think getting the transparency and then, you know, enabling you as a consumer or even small business of making a more conscious decision. That's what we all want, right? You still have the free choice of do whatever you want. But I think the moment you understand what your actions or the impact your actions are having is the moment you start rethinking. And I think that's the beauty about this. And that's the power about the solution as well. And often we are surprised. I mean, that's what we see in all of the statistics that we're getting from the consumers is always like most people don't know what their impact is. And once they see it, they're surprised. And then they're willing to take actions that matches their goals and beliefs. And it's usually one step further.
Absolutely. So let's move to a little bit of a different area. We're starting to run out of time. And of course, we want our Gen Z participants to get to chime in. Let's talk about how digital cards, vouchers, payment apps enhance the holiday season experience. And in what ways do they promote a paperless and sustainable lifestyle? We'll do a quick fire round on this one. Lisa, you can be first.
Okay, so I'm just going to talk about what's coming next for Xero in relation to this question. So I mentioned that we are, as a result of research amongst our potential customers, looking at ways to tap into that hierarchy of behavior in terms of how can we become more sustainable as a population. So number 1, understand and measure our impact, which we're doing. Number 2, obviously reduce as much as possible. Then the third step in that process is, in what ways can we mitigate the carbon and the greenhouse gases that we have emitted to date, both in terms of industries, but individuals as well. So I think the IPCC has said that we all need to reduce carbon emissions as much as possible, but we need to also remove what we have emitted to date. So the next evolution of Zero is to offer our customers within the app a roundup tool, which automatically will round up and enable them to make contributions to carbon reduction and carbon removal, biodiversity protection type projects. So yeah, watch this space for that.
Love it. Love to see it. Again, engagement and choice. People love it. David, really quickly, and then we're going to move on to our next question and our Gen Z. Any thoughts there?
I think my answer is a bit controversial maybe, but I would say it's all nonsense. Because, if you really look into the impact of things, it's rather more important to where you spend that money, not how you get it there, right? Yes, it does make a difference if there's a plastic card or a digital channel. You remove the plastic, that's good. But the amount you put or spend through the card and where you spend this is so much higher, the impact of it, than actually this piece of plastic. So I think for the industry, I get it. It's one element of saying we try our best to do something. But the real problem is, where is the money that is on this gift card actually being spent? And I think that is something that digital tools can help. So I'm with you, Lisa. I think, instead of buying a piece of chocolate again for my neighbors, maybe I'll plant them a tree and put it on a nice postcard or something like that. It has definitely a better effect. And it's a nice way of gifting, and give someone something. It's the same here. And maybe with a bigger thought behind it, why I'm not giving you chocolate this time that you probably throw away. So I would say for the industry, I know this is an interesting topic, but actually the problem is the consumption, not the gift card or the digital channel.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit more. And I'm going to lean into our Gen Zers here to answer let's talk about how apps can help track spending and guide consumers towards sustainable holiday purchases, simplifying their efforts to be eco-conscious. I'm sure that we all have some thoughts on this one, but why don't we let Hannah first share a little bit about how you feel about this topic?
Amazing. So apps, without a doubt, can help us be more eco-conscious, particularly during the holiday season. But I would also then say that actually the app, if it's not educating you on how you can be more sustainable within your spending habits, what really is the point of the app? You can track your spending, and you can track, for example, like Green Score is an incredible way of looking and checking your spending habits. But really, if you're not sure on what you're doing next and how you can change your spending habits to be more sustainable by even little things like looking at B Corps when you're looking for your Christmas presents, or even considering not spending and going for an experience, going to a local coffee shop. Instead of buying your coworker a Secret Santa present, give them a gift voucher from your local coffee shop. Things like that. Just supporting your local community is, in my opinion, more sustainable than buying loads of expensive presents for people. And I think that apps actually helping to educate people within that is more useful.
Absolutely. And experiences last a lifetime for sure. How about you, Freya? Some thoughts on this?
So I think with apps, like first of all for Gen Z, because we do use like technology a lot. So firstly, I think it's really easy for the Gen Z to be able to like use apps to access the information. And then also because there is a lot of information out there, it's also like a good sort of place to have all the information you need about how to be more sustainable all in one place. And then I think that would make it easier for them to be more like eco-conscious in the future with their like spending habits.
Absolutely. Let me ask our Gen Zers another question since we've got you here. How important is sustainability to you and your peers when making purchase decisions? You've hit on it a little bit, but with the holiday season, what does this really mean for your generation? Not to make you be a spokesperson for your generation, but your take on really how Gen Z is approaching all of this. Why don't we start with Freya this time?
Yeah, so I feel like with Gen Z, like we are definitely more like climate conscious and aware. So I feel like on one hand, like we do want to be more sustainable. So for like the people that can afford it, they will spend a bit more to make those sustainable decisions. But then it's like for the people that can't afford it, they might struggle a bit more. But as David said, like if they're educated on like other ways that it can be sustainable, then that can sort of guide them to making more sustainable spending decisions. And also just really quickly with Gen Z as well, we do spend a lot of time on social media and TikTok. And with TikTok trends, that can either promote you to be less sustainable because you want the newest item. But at the same time, with TikTok trends, there's also ways people are showing that you can make your own gifts, you can do your own home baking. So that can also be used as well for like Gen Z in the holiday season.
Great answer. Hannah, you get to wrap us up here and then I'll close us out. Same question for you.
Okay, so the one thing I would say is sustainability to me personally is very important. But I also think with peers, when making decisions at like in the holiday season, people consider sustainability, but as Freya says, it's expensive. Shopping locally can be more expensive. Shopping B Corps sometimes can be more expensive, and especially younger Gen Z students potentially as well don't have that extra income. So as I said previously, kind of considering your consumption, I think is the best thing you can do during the holiday season when making purchasing decisions. If you're buying a present for someone, make sure they actually want it, make sure it's something they're actually going to find useful, and then you're being sustainable in your purchasing because your present isn't going to waste. But also you are spending your money wisely and doing it in a sustainable way.
Absolutely. This has been an absolutely engaging conversation. I appreciate all of our guests. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Hopefully you've all enjoyed your time with us. And hopefully you've found some actionable ways to incorporate sustainability into both your daily lives and your business. And of course, we hope that you will join us next time on API Chronicles. Until then, happy holidays.
Thank you.
Bye.